Hello, my friends, and welcome to a space where pleasure is treasured, relaxation is not what you think it is, and life firing on all cylinders is what we're about. If you are somebody who wakes up every day asking for way more, consider this your happy place. Welcome to the Creation of Living podcast. I'm your host, Heather Nichols. Let's dive in. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Creation of Living podcast. Oh my goodness. This is the first, not the first and the first Creation of Living podcast. It's the first one this go round. I had a podcast called Creation of Living a while ago. And then I had a podcast called The Entrepreneurial Biome, which was amazing and phenomenal. And there's so much incredible content. And I'm kind of revamping my business, my website. I am revamping my business, my website, and really kind of bringing together everything that I've done over the past 30 years, working with bodies, working with people, working with creation and energetics and all kinds of amazing, amazing tools. And there's a brand new website that will be launched soon. Maybe it will have been by the time you see this. And it's been an amazing opportunity for me to really synthesize and organize so much of what I know, what I love, and how I like to work with people. And because it's very, very unique. And I went through this process of lots of people asking me, what do you do? And not really ever being able to answer that question. And I wanted to be able to speak more directly to what it is that I do in plain language, in language that is a little bit more understandable. And part of it for me has been that there's so many moving parts. There's so many different aspects of what I do and how I do it. And there's one theme that it sort of all boils down to, and that is what I call the creation of living. And so it was time to come again to this podcast, to this title, to just sort of work in sync and in conjunction with what I'm creating on my website and all kinds of new offerings. And so here we are again, Creation of Living. The Entrepreneurial Biome is an incredible wealth of information and resources and awareness. We're considering it season 1 of my podcast, even though I've been doing radio shows and podcasts since way before podcasts even existed. That's probably been about 11 years for me. So there's a ton of content out there. And if you go to my podcast page on my website, which is heathernichols.com/podcast, you'll see the Entrepreneurial Biome is season 1. And now here we are in season 2,000, Creation of Living. The creation of living to me is, it's a phrase that I've been using for a very long time in my work. A lot of times people don't really know what it means. And it doesn't really matter if you know what it means. But the idea is that, you can have a life. You can have a life. You can create a life. And when you have a life, when you create a life, you're not really creating. It's more about kind of getting somewhere, getting to a destination that is called your life. And when you have a life, there's no movement to it. It's a fixed reality. It's a fixed universe. And so many of us kind of wake up, in a life at some point and realize, wait a minute, this is really boring. Like, how did I get here to where I'm doing the same thing all the time, every day, day in, day out? Where am I in this equation? Where's my body in this equation? Why am I here? Why am I on the planet? Like, what's the purpose of being here if it's just like, get up, go to work, deal with the kids, deal with the things, deal with the money, deal with the house, deal with the, and then go to bed and do it again for years and years and decades, and I've always just valued having fun, quite honestly, kind of really boils down to that. Having fun, enjoying, truly, deeply, fully enjoying my life, and not just for 2 weeks of vacation a year or on the weekends. That was never enough for me. It was like, I would like to enjoy my life all the time, and I will enjoy my life all the time. And so I've always had this inkling of what else is possible, and this sense that there was always so much more than what was being shown. Even as a little girl, I remember just being like, wait a minute, what's going on this planet? Like, what is this all about anyway? I don't think it's all about what they say it's all about. I think it's about something really much more cool, because this is a pretty neat place. And so I've always had this lust for living and being alive, and enjoyment of my body, and enjoyment of beauty, and enjoyment of pleasure and creation. And I've also been a really intense person. I'm an intense creator. Everything I do basically has a lot of intensity to it. For a long time, I judged that, and I thought that was wrong. I thought that was something I needed to overcome and like chill out. And then I would try to chill out, and that wasn't really, it wasn't really hitting the mark for me, because it was way too boring. Vacation has never been something that I could do, because it's just way too boring. I was never able to just like go lay on the beach for a week, because I just was aware of all the people that were miserable with their lives. And I remember the last time I tried to do a vacation in Hawaii, which was a long time ago. I just remember thinking, everybody here hates their life. Everybody here hates themselves and their families, and everybody's miserable, but they have money and they're in Hawaii, and somehow they think they should be having a good old time, but I was always aware that they weren't. And I was just kind of like, I don't want that for my life. Like, I would really like to, if I'm here, there's a lot of crazy stuff on this planet. And it was kind of like, if I'm here, I'm going to have fun. And pardon the extreme lighting happening. I am not a lighting technician. So I do my own podcast. I don't have a crew. So sometimes the light bounces off of the snow, and it makes me look kind of cinematic, let's say. But you know what? If I had to spend time getting the lighting perfect, you would never get any podcasts. So my podcasts are imperfect, and may we all be that way. I figure it's more important to get the info out and the awareness and all of that than to, try to fiddle. Because every time, I even have lights. I even have like professional lights. I don't use them because it's too much work. So here we are. So anyway, I want to share a little bit of a story, because this to me exemplifies the universe of creation and living. I was married, and I had two babies. I had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. And this was back in the early 2000s. And I thought I had always wanted a family. Like when I was a kid, it was like, I'm going to grow up, I'm going to get married, I'm going to have a great job, I'm going to have 2 kids, and I'm going to, happily ever after, And I never challenged that. I never looked at it. I never even asked myself if that's what I truly wanted. It was just like, of course it is. So let's do it. So I found a guy who was in, and we did the thing. We got married, we had kids. And right after my second one was born, we kind of were like, wow, I think we're probably kind of done. We just really never were that in love with each other. And there was a lot of issues, let's just say, and stuff going on, and stuff that was very hard for me to handle. And I was incredibly stressed out, and I was incredibly just really not thriving. And I had a 2.5-year-old and a newborn, basically. And it was like, wow, my marriage is kind of probably falling apart, even though I don't want to admit it, because, I don't know what I would do. But a year later, we let it fall apart. and we just kind of, it was actually very, I'm grateful for my ex. We had a pretty easy process of it. And it was, hey, I think we're just friends that have kids together. Let's just be friends that have kids together. And so that's what we did. And we got divorced. I had a 1-year-old and a 3.5-year-old. And my body was very stressed. Having babies was very hard on me, physically, energetically, emotionally. It was very, very taxing. My kids didn't sleep. They were colicky. It wasn't the picture perfect, sweet little baby family life that I had always imagined. And I was deeply, let's just say, like undernourished as a person, not from food, but from the profound lack of nourishment in my life in general, and what I actually wouldn't give to myself because I didn't know that I could. It's getting very cinematic around here. I also have ADD and ADHD. So we got divorced, and I started, doing my best with 2 babies, basically, and very, like, really struggling. And about 2 years later, I had found, I was a somatic psychotherapist. So I was already, somebody who did a lot. I had done so much, enormous amounts of personal work, trauma work, psychotherapy, body-centered work. I was a movement teacher. I had a studio. I did all this beautiful work with movement and somatic psychotherapy and trauma therapy, and tried to do that. I received a lot of it in my own life and tried to really support myself as best I could. And I had found the tools of Access Consciousness, which is one of the modalities that I practice, that is just a beautiful, beautiful, enormous, rich body of work that is about being able to create anything we would like and change anything that isn't working for us, and having the tools, the pragmatic, energetic tools to do it. And I had found Access Consciousness, and I was in some pretty extreme back pain, which was interesting because I was a yoga teacher. I was a dance teacher. I was a body person. I was fit, I was fairly young, and this should not be happening. And so I went to, and I was also really trying to build my business. I was starting my business. And again, I had my psychotherapy practice, but then I had kids, and that kind of just, got put on the back burner. So I was building that, as well as my Access Consciousness business as a facilitator, and, just struggling with all of it. Single mom, really pretty hyperactive, two very young, very hyper boys. And, new business, trying to get it off the ground. My back was in excruciating pain. I couldn't even put on my shoes some days. Had a hard time getting out of bed some days. And I was like, what is the deal here? I was living in this tiny little, very cold townhouse, and, I had some money, but it was not, massively flowing. And it was just, wow, this is not where I thought I was going to be at age. I think I was probably maybe 40 or something like that. And I went to a class with the founder of Access Consciousness, whose name is Gary Douglas. He's an amazing man, amazing, amazing creature on the planet. And it was a body class. It was an advanced body class, which is the body classes in Access Consciousness are these hands-on energetic classes where you run energetic processes on each other's bodies. It's beautiful, beautiful. It's one of my main tools that I use for everything. It's just such an incredible tool. And he asked me, I asked a question. I said, I have this extreme pain in my back, and how can I change it? And he asked me point blank in front of everybody, do you hate being a mom? And this man is psychic. And I knew that I knew in that moment that the answer was yes. And I didn't want it to be. And I hadn't admitted that to myself. But I knew I couldn't lie. I knew I didn't want to lie because I wanted it to change. I had no idea what being a mom had to do with my back, but here I was. So, okay, yes, I do. And from there, he basically gave me this beautiful facilitation around that. What I hated about being a mom, like, helped me to realize, he empowered me to realize that what I hated about being a mom was trying to get it right, was doing all the perfect things, was trying not to mess up my kids, was trying to like be the Wonder Woman, single mom, Wonder Woman, can do everything, have all my ducks in a row, and everybody's like eating healthy and has everything that they need, and I'm thriving, and and it was just, there was nothing underneath it. Like, it was like my tank was empty, and I somehow was trying to live up to this perfection that I had put in place for myself, that the world had also put in place for me. And it all came crumbling down at that moment. And I went, wow, okay, I don't want to be a perfect mom. I love my children. I love my children, but I do not enjoy being a mom. And he said to me, hire it out then, and I did. And it was a very controversial conversation in my world at the time. But what I realized was that if I could hire somebody to do the things that I hated, that I had decided were the things that would make me a good mom, like cooking for my children, cleaning the house, doing the laundry, picking them up from school, stuff that my kids did not care about. But it somehow was like the definition of, this isn't what a good mom does. And I somehow thought that if I did all that stuff and I got it right, that it would make me a good mom. Well, my body was screaming at me saying, help, this is horrible. I hate this. I hate this, And what I was doing is I hated it so much, but I couldn't admit it to myself. And I was basically hiding it behind my own back, in my back. And that's what hurt so bad. So in that moment, I was going to hire somebody to do the things that I didn't want to do. I was going to be willing to be a bad mom in the eyes of other people. And I was going to parent my kids in such a way that acknowledged them as beings, where I could actually be present with them as a being, with a being, as my body with their bodies, not trying to be the picture perfect mom that I could never be, but being me with them. And as soon as I made that decision, my back pain was gone. Literally crippling, debilitating back pain that had been there for months. It disappeared completely overnight. And I also had a body process run in the class, which is this energetic tool that is just amazing. So the conjunction of those two things, I woke up the next morning and my body basically was like, take me for a run. And that the pain never, ever, ever came back after that. And from there, I hired somebody who helped me, pick up the kids, drive them around, do their homework, cook them dinner, cook me dinner, clean up, get them ready for bed. He helped me with my business as well. This was a Manny. I got a Manny who was wonderful. And he helped me with all of it. He was a really beautiful support for me at the time, so that I could focus on my business. I could focus on me and my body. I could take care of myself. And I could be present with my kids in a way that I would not be able to do if I had to do all of those other things. Now, I didn't have the money to do this at the time, but I knew that if I chose it, the money would show up. And it did immediately. It showed up immediately. And that was the beginning for me. And so what does that have to do with creation of living? Well, to me, the creation of living is a universe of more. It's a universe that you only some dare to play in, though, if they are willing to have a lot more, willing to be in the conversation of more, willing to be in the exploration of creating more. And the thing is that the way most of us seek more is through work, effort, suffering, and struggle. We seek more with this idea that we have to give ourselves up. in order to have more. If you would like to have wealth, you can't have time. If you would like to, have you and your children have an extremely healthy, beautiful diet, you won't have time to hang out with them. If you would like to care for your body, you have to sacrifice something. And I looked at that and I was like, that is not my reality. I'm not going to live from the perspective and the point of view that I have to sacrifice in order to have more in one area. That more in one area means less in another. That makes no sense to me. And thank goodness that the conversations and the tools of Access Consciousness were aligned. I had some tools to work with this beautiful body of work that was, gave me a lot of tools to explore what it was that I knew about all of this. And that's the thing, is we have to explore what we know, what's true for us, because it will just tug at us and pull on us and want to distract us and want to, want us to well, everything else wants to distract us, but it will just keep nudging and niggling and bugging us, if we don't pursue what it is that we know. But so many of us don't have the tools to actually pursue that. Like, we don't know how to make a life that is about living, that is about the constant daily moment to moment creation of living, where more equals more equals more equals more equals more equals more equals more. More joy with my body equals more wealth. More happiness for me equals more contentment with my children. More peace and ease and relaxation equals more of me to share with the world. More flourishing in my business equals more flourishing in the world, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I set out to explore that. And thank goodness again that I had the tools of Access Consciousness. And then I also had so much body awareness and a lot of body tools that I brought with me also from my work as a somatic psychotherapist and a movement therapist. My body has always been a very, very central part of my life. It's something that I'm willing to put a lot of time and care and energy and nurturing into. And it's evolved. Like my relationship with my body, the way I care for my body has evolved very dynamically over time. And my body has always been this indicator of what else I could be choosing, what else I could be asking for. And it's always been about, if my body isn't happy, if my body is not having pleasure, like full on pleasure, then my life will not, like the rest of my life and living will not be as great. And it's been so interesting to see this time and time again, where when I choose to really nurture my body, I choose pleasure in my life, my business grows and expands, my children get happier. And I have millions of stories I could tell about that. But the point is that my body's always indicating to me, hey, when you think you have to have less, when you think you have to give stuff up to have what you desire, when you think that, you have to sacrifice, I'm going to show you that that's not true. And a lot of times it does it with some pain, but hey, the cool thing is that I don't have a lot of pain anymore, because I don't really go that route so much anymore. And this whole experience with my children and the back pain, it showed me that, because once I handled the parenting, the back pain went away and my business started to flourish, just sort of as a byproduct, because I was so unhappy trying to be something that I wasn't and trying to be perfect, which is never a formula for any sort of success with anything. I was so unhappy with that it was affecting, like, my parenting world was a thing that I needed to change my body and change my business. And this is another piece of the creation of living that's so important, is that if you bark up the wrong tree, you're going to miss something, which is why we need to have a lot of tools in a lot of areas. Because it may not be like, for me, it wasn't about my body really. It was about my parenting world. And it wasn't about my business. It was about my parenting world. But I didn't know that. Thank goodness Gary Douglas knew enough to ask me that question. My body was what was going on in my body was a symptom of what was happening in my world as a parent. What was happening in my business was also a symptom of what was happening with this deep, deep dissatisfaction and unhappiness and real, like, actual grief that the beautiful family that I thought I was going to have never happened, and I had to process that. And so you just never know which area of your life you need to handle in order to handle whatever it is that you're asking to handle that seems more on the surface. And when we include our bodies in change, in exploration, in the creation of living, then our bodies are an enormous resource for giving us information about where we can look, what we can change, what we can tweak or let go of or step into, that will allow everything to flourish. And then the flourishing happens in all directions. Our bodies are such a central part of that. And when we learn how to listen to our bodies, when we develop communion with our bodies, when we stop judging our bodies and we stop fighting them, when we start realizing that everything that goes on with our body is a gift of awareness, there's information there. There's sometimes like some, kind of like messages, which, information, awareness, whatever you want to call it, but it's our body indicating something to us about what we could change and have greater. And every time my body thrives more, everything in my life thrives more. My business always grows when my body is really happy. My children, who are now basically adults, they got so much happier when I got happier, when I stopped trying to be good for them and I started being me. They calmed down, they settled, that like we had this beautiful, I ended up creating this beautiful family with my children, the three of us, and a long distance relationship with a beautiful man for 15 years, who is like kind of part of he is part of our family. And also, like, I still got to have this precious life with my kids that was the three of us, that was really cool and really different. And I took them traveling around the world and we just did so many cool things. And they got to have a really different childhood because I was willing to be me. And that was the only thing that I could be and still be happy, which is always how it is, and please, let's all be ourselves more and more every day. But my kids got to grow up seeing a mom who was always willing to prioritize me, my body, my joy, the pleasure of being alive, having relaxation, being as intense as I am, but still having this intense pleasure, intense aliveness, intense relaxation, intense creation, intense seeking for more that isn't couched in the dissatisfaction of something that isn't, which is where most people go when they go to more. They want more because what is sucks, but a more that emerges from the gratitude of being alive. And we are the only ones that can give that to ourselves. It is only us that can, at the end of the day, look in the mirror, get present with ourselves and go, I'm really happy with how I showed up today. I took care of me. I took care of my body today. I did something beautiful today. I gave myself space. I didn't judge me. I asked more questions. I made more choices. I made less conclusions. I explored more. I chose more. I had more courage. I had less fear. All of these things allow our lives, our bodies, our businesses, everything to flourish. And that to me it's the beginning of this season of creation of living. So thank you so much for being here, for listening, for tapping in. There's so many exciting and phenomenal things coming shortly around the corner, around the bend. So much incredible creation and beautiful offerings that I am really excited to be launching out into the world. Private work with me, some really incredible classes all over the world, some retreats, all kinds of amazing stuff. And I just I'm very grateful to be having these conversations. I'm grateful that now is the time. I'm grateful for you for being here and for being moved in such a way as to, listen and participate and receive. And I love connecting with people. So if you want to reach out and say hello, I really love hearing from people. I do read all of my, messages and emails and all that stuff. Let's create a beautiful, beautiful world that works for us and our bodies, and enjoy this incredible planet that we have. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time with more. Thank you for joining me for the Creation of Living podcast. If this conversation was inspiring to you, share the love. To work privately with me or for info on my upcoming classes and retreats, go to heathernichols.com. Have a beautiful day, and remember that the world thrives when you do.